Hey everybody out there, this is Seto Kaiba from your Yu-Gi-Oh! Chat channel. And today guys, we're going to talk about, like you see up in the title above, we're going to talk about tiers. And what are tiers, my thoughts on tiers, my definition of tiers, and what other people think of tiers. And we'll just have a general discussion, like always, about this topic. And I know I hinted about this topic in one of my last videos when I was said, about good decks. It's another term that is thrown around there, like this deck is tier 1, this deck is tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, whatever. It's one of those things that is thrown around just like this is a good deck or that's a good deck. And so I just wanted to have a discussion about this, guys. So where did tiers come from? I honestly try to find. I looked online and I try to find an exact definition or year or date when tiers first appeared in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I honestly can't say for sure when they popped up. Me personally, I just know that people started using it at my locals when I was younger, and they were just like, "Well, this deck is tier 1, this deck is tier 2, this deck is tier." And I remember it popping up on Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki when Yu-Gi-Oh! Wiki came out, and it just had the top tier decks of like from 2006 to recent. And so that's where tiers came about. I don't know exactly where they came about. Now, I have a special ranking in my, each person out there, each individual that plays Yu-Gi-Oh! Ranks decks differently. Tiers is one way that some people rank decks, and if you were to ask me what do I consider, tier and stuff like that, I pretty much have a ranking system. If you want to go with tier 0, some people talk about tier 0 being like the most busted deck of the format. Me personally, the only tier 0 deck I have ever run across is, one turn Exodia, and it's that deck that just draws Exodia so fast that I don't think it's around no more because most of the cards have gotten limited or hit or banned. Like Gold Sarcophagus and Super Rejuvenation, stuff like that. It was a deck that, you know, one turn Exodia just was so hard to deal with, and I have to admit, it's the one deck I have never been able to beat. Anytime I go against Exodia decks, sometimes I'm able to win. But that one turn Exodia deck that I'll be playing against one of my friends who actually ran that deck, and I took it to a major tournament and actually did good a couple years ago. It was just so good of a deck. I just never could beat it, and it was the only deck that I ever considered to be amazing, godlike. For tier 1, if you're going to talk about decks that are tier 1 for me is just the decks of that format. What is the most popular decks of the format? What decks are topping the most? What decks are people playing the most? So if you want to talk about last format, what I would consider to have been tier 1 last format, things like E-Dragons, Evil Swarms, which was an anti-meta deck that people played, Spellbooks, Constellars, and Fire Fist, I would say, to some extent, all the tier 1 decks of last format. This format, I don't think we know exactly what the tier 1 deck is going to be completely. I think it's going to be, especially with that new, Noble Knights card, Noble Knights and Bujins, I think are going to be continued for tier 1, but we don't know yet exactly. I don't know until we have a major tournament and that's all sorted out. A couple of tournaments, and then we'll know exactly what the format's going to shape up to be. It's going to usually take a month, but back on topic here. Tier 2, there's also, after tier 1, it's kind of that tier I consider right between, tier 1 and tier 2, right in the middle. It's not tier 1, but it's not tier 2. It's a good deck that it's consistent. It can consistently, it tops at tournaments and at, stuff like that, but it doesn't have the numbers. People don't play that deck enough that it tops consistently. Decks like this I consider like Madolches. Gadgets is the poster child. Whenever I think of that deck right between tier 1 and tier 2, it's Gadgets. They are decks that they get indirect support a lot, and they're good. Macro Monarchs, Frog Monarchs, stuff like that. Gadgets. Look how much indirect support they got last year. They're a good deck. They're consistent, but they're not tier 1. They don't have the numbers to be tier 1. So, just to name off what indirect support Gadgets got, Redox, Template Goldfish, King of the Feral Imps, Dagusto Emerald, Lavava Chain, Master Charmeleon if you want to go there. Redox, I know I already said that, but stuff like that. Tier 2, me personally, when I think of Tier 2 decks, I think that's where a majority of my decks I play and decks I consider to be Tier 2. So Tier 2 decks are decks that they may have got nerfed, they may have lost some of their power, but they're still good, consistent decks out there. Or they're just good, consistent decks in general that had never gotten hit. So things like Six Samurais, Gravekeepers to some extent, Insectors, Hunders, Dark Worlds, Blue Eyes type build decks. Decks of this nature fall into my Tier 2 category. So just good, well-rounded decks, like I've talked about before, fall into this category. Now, pretty much between Tier 3 and Tier 2, there's some decks that fall in that category, like Horus, my Horus deck, or some of those decks. They're good, but they're not super duper great and consistent all the time. That's pretty much what falls in that category. And for Tier 3, sometimes I don't even consider Tier 3, but Tier 3 are gimmicky decks for me. That's what falls into Tier 3 category. Things like, I'm probably have to change my definition, but like funny OTK decks that are really not that consistent, like other decks like Final Countdown decks that revolve around one single card in the entire deck. That is what my Tier 3 decks revolve around. Gimmicky decks, gimmicky OTK decks, and maybe not like skill drain based decks, but just like, not even Exodia, because Exodia revolves around more than one card, and I've seen some Exodia decks from like Tragodia for like attack. So it's just like those gimmicky decks that revolve around one card and stalling, like Final Countdown when that was the major thing, and Self-Destruct button before it got banned, and gimmicky OTK type decks. Now, some people out there now believe that tier type, the ranking of tiers is not a good way to go on the power of a deck. I'm one of those people. I mean, the people that go by tiers, because there's some people out there that are diehards I've seen that they'll pretty much be like, if you don't play a tier deck, you're not going to be winning at any event. I've heard that people say that before. I'm like, I don't think that's true at any event. But whatever you want to think, I'll respect your opinion. But pretty much, some people, go by tiers. Some people don't go by tiers. Some people don't care about it either way. I'm one of those people that I don't care about it either way, but I do look at it from time to time just to see, how my list matches up what I think is tier or good to what they think is good. Personally, what I can say, guys, is play what you want to play. Don't worry about tiers if your deck is tier or not. Like I've said a million times, and I'm probably preaching this to the choir by now, but if your deck is properly piloted, if it's properly good, it can beat tier 1 decks. If properly side decked, it can beat them on a consistent basis, and it can beat them in matches. It's just, remember, you guys, it's a numbers game on what decks top and what decks don't top at some events. If you go to an event that has 200 people and 150 of those people are playing Boojins and Noble Knights, then probably Boojins and Noble Knights are going to top a majority of the decks. You may have some other decks here and there, but those are not the main decks people are playing. So it's a numbers game at determining tiers is what my final conclusion is. And it doesn't matter what you play, guys. I'm not hating on people that go by tiers, or if you play tier 1 deck, tier 2 deck, tier 3 deck. I mean, I'm the type of guy, I just play what I want to play, and I'm happy with it. And I hope you're the same way. But that is my talk. That is my discussion, guys. So please tell me down below, what do you think of tiers? Do you think it's a necessary thing? Do you think it's important? Do you think it's intricate into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? I mean, what do you think of tiers? What do you think of tiers in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? And if actually anybody out there knows where tiers came from, like where did they come from, what year, about like how did they come about, please tell me down below because I'm very interested in that. But till next time, guys, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling, play what you want to play, and enjoy it for the new format, guys. And I'll see you guys next time. Seto Kaiba, guys, I'm out of here, guys. Have fun, everybody. Take care.